What's up, everyone? Back for another beer review, and today I'll be reviewing a beer from the Listermann Brewing Company, and they're out of Cincinnati, Ohio, and this is their barrel-aged Imperial Shamrock Shake with Coffee, the 2019 vintage. So they're calling this one an Imperial Irish Cream Stout that is brewed with lactose and coffee, then aged in bourbon barrels, comes in at 11% alcohol by volume. No IBUs listed in time of review. I don't know exactly how old this bottle is, and that's because it does not have a bottle on date as far as I can tell, but this is the 2019 vintage, as I mentioned, and I believe they released this one around St. Patrick's Day of 2019, so I would say this is approximately 1 year old at the time of review. So I thought, on St. Patrick's Day Eve, so to speak, I would grab this one and give it a review because it's definitely theme worthy, so to speak. And yeah, this has been in my cellar since September because I picked this up in Cincinnati when I hung out with some beer tubing friends. Rod over at Rod J Beer Ventures, a good friend of mine, a fellow beer tuber. Eric, formerly known as Eric Lions Fan, and now just Eric Brenner on YouTube. We hung out along with our buddy Todd, and all three of us had a good time. We actually went to the Listermann Brewery, but I did not pick this up at Listermann. Actually, picked this up at a local bottle shop. I forgot which one. It wasn't Jungle Jim's, and it certainly wasn't the Party Sorts, but it was a small bottle shop. They still had, a lot of the barrel-aged releases from Listermann. I picked up like 2 or 3 from them, and this was one of the several that I picked up. I think I picked up like a half dozen beers, and all of them like crazy Imperial Stouts, pastry stouts, barrel-aged stouts, and this is the first one I'm reviewing. I thought it made sense considering tomorrow is St. Patrick's Day, so here we are. Let's give it a crack open. Give it a pour. Now, this has coffee in it, and again, being a year old, we'll see how the coffee held up. Not too sure. Hopefully it held up well, so let's give it a pour. Oh, yeah. Pouring out like a big Imperial Stout, baby. Doth the road know no boundaries. I don't know what I'm talking about. Anyway, yeah, super pitch black. It's going to come off pitch black on camera, definitely pitch black in person. Has this straight up brown colored head, about a half finger, creamy looking Irish cream stout, brewed with lactose and coffee, aged in bourbon barrels. Sure, it looks like it. Let's get a nose. Oh yeah, that's nice. That is nice. Definitely has a sweetness, and it almost comes off as like a cream, like a heavy cream kind of sensation to it. Definitely vanilla and sweetness. Sweeter dark chocolate, molasses. The bourbon is there. It's not super bold, but it has like this nice bourbon kind of character. There's a nice roasted malt component. Coffee, a little bit lost. The good thing I can say about this right now is that even though on the nose the coffee is not prevalent, at least it doesn't have like the green pepper note you can associate with coffee as it sometimes ages. Definitely something that I'm happy about because that's not a great aroma or taste to get. The green pepper coffee character, not ideal. Oh, that vanilla, it almost has like a vanilla, almost like vanilla caramel type of just sweetness to it. It's really nice. It smells sweeter. I'm not really getting a huge like oak presence, just like the straight on spirit from the bourbon barrels. Does not smell like it's 11%, just smells awesome. This honestly, even sans the coffee, this smells awesome. And I think this is like the first big like barrel-aged stout or any kind of like huge pastry beer or anything like that I've ever had from Listermann. When we were at the brewery, I got a couple different beers in a flight. Had a lot of like their sours and hop forward offerings. So I'm hoping for good things from this one. It smells amazing. Let's get into it. Cheers, everyone. That's fucking dynamite. God damn. Ooh, coffee's there. Not huge, but it's definitely there. Body in this one, 11%, a bit thin. This is like higher side of medium, lower side of full. Definitely a bit thin. I don't know if age has done that or if it was thin when you first had, when they first brewed it, but for me, definitely thin. Mouthfeel's dynamite. There's carbonation there letting you know it's a beer, but it's so soft, smooth, and somewhat creamy from the lactose. Probably just from the barrel aging, losing a little bit of carbonation. Mouthfeel's fucking fantastic. The body, a bit thin. But the taste, roasted malts up front. There's like a dark chocolate approaching like lower, like 40-50% cacao bar. So not really sweet dark chocolate, but it's definitely dark chocolate. There's caramel. There's vanilla. The lactose is providing a sweetness. Like right up front, it has that roasted like malt kind of bittering chocolate. As it starts passing through the palate, I think the lactose kicks in, and just like the base malts and the sweetness from the beer just kind of kick in. Then mid palate, I'm hit with the bourbon. I'm getting an oak tannin presence, getting a nice bourbon kind of presence to it, and it has like a slight peppery, spicy kind of bourbon sensation. And then after that, there's a nice, like, slight tinge of like a roasted coffee. It definitely separates itself from the roasted malt and from the bourbon, which is really cool to see. It has a semi-dry finish. I think the dryness and a slight, like, mild to moderate bitterness. I think both of those are kind of come from the oak tannins, probably the alcohol itself. Yeah, but it's really sweet, like the first, I'd say 2/3 of the palate. Then the last third, it dries out to a semi-dry, mild to moderate bitterness. Really cool. 11%. This is, I cannot tell you this is 11%. The only way I can tell you this is a bigger beer on the palate is that there's a lot of flavors going on here. And it's hard to produce a beer of this stature, so to speak, without it being bigger ABV. Like I would guess at least 9% on this one, just on the flavors, probably 10. But 11%, no, I'm getting a little bit of warming chest into the stomach on the palate, no astringency whatsoever. As you can see, I'm drinking this quite easily, which is scary. This is a crushable 11% barrel-aged stout. Like, that's sick to me. Irish cream, yeah. I mean, the lactose, I think, is providing a nice creaminess to the mouthfeel, but also providing that vanilla and that sweetness kind of in the taste. Wow. Even with a year on it, the coffee's there. I mean, I'm sure the coffee was probably super bold and pungent, just punching in the face fresh. But as is, like drinking this 1 year old, it's definitely fallen off, I would imagine. But it's still there. It's still there to some degree, and that's nice to see. There's not much more to say about this one. I really enjoy this one a lot, and I'm glad I cracked this one open and drinking on St. Patrick's Day Eve. So, yeah, anyway, rating on the barrel-aged Imperial Shamrock Shake with coffee, the 2019 vintage from Listermann. High 4.5 out of 5. I'm going to go 4.6 out of 5. This is delicious. If they release this or any variant, or if they just released the base one for St. Patrick's Day, and I'm sure they did, and they probably did maybe yesterday or this past weekend. I don't know. I haven't checked up on Listermann in a couple months, but I'd imagine they're going to release this and want to get in. If they do any variation of this, whether it's the non-barrel-aged version, if they do one, or a barrel-aged version, or one with coffee, or whatever they do, definitely try to get your hands on it because it sounds delicious to me in general outside of this one. Like, I would like to try this without coffee. I would like to try a non-barrel-aged version. I just think the base beer is probably pretty good. The only issue with this one for me is really the body for the most part. I think the body's kind of lacking, and honestly the coffee as well not being as pungent, but here we are a year later, so that's more on me than it is them. So anyway, price and availability. I don't know what the availability is. Outside of, I know they released these at the brewery, but they also clearly got into local bottle shops, and I picked this up at a local bottle shop. And what did I pay for it? I paid $10.99 a bottle. So $11 for that bottle, just under $1 an ounce. If you don't know, for me, kind of the max, I'm willing to pay is $1 per ounce. So if this was over $12 for this bottle, I probably wouldn't have bought it. But for $10.99, it's skirting the lines of, is it worth it? I give this a 4.6 out of 5. $11 for that bottle to try? Yeah, for sure. I would. I would probably buy it again too. Definitely one bottle. I don't think I would stack up on this and buy a bunch of bottles and age them or anything. But I think if I never had this one before, and I know it's as good as it is now, I would definitely buy it again. And if I was ever in Cincinnati again, which I might be at some point, and I see this on the shelf and it's under $12 a bottle, I'll probably buy another one. That's where it is for me. So yeah, Listermann's barrel-aged Imperial Shamrock Shake with coffee, 2019 vintage, 4.6 out of 5. If you've had this one before, if you've had any of the Imperial Shamrock Shakes, or I think they do just a 5.5% Shamrock Shake, as far as I recall. Like I said, I haven't checked in a couple months, but I remember them doing like a lower ABV, just like regular Irish Cream Stout. If you've had anything from them within regards to the series, but in general, like if you've had anything from Listermann, let me know what you think. I went to the brewery, like I said, one of the best breweries in Cincinnati for me as far as their beer is concerned. I really liked the spot. It was a nice, quiet spot too, and it's just a good time. So appreciate everybody stopping by for another beer review. Until the next one, I guess. Cheers.